Hello and welcome back to a couple Sporcle quizzes. Today we're going to play a series of quizzes called Criteria, then a letter cities. Basically, you are given 8 different cities, some more well-known, some less well-known, and you're given 8 criteria. And you have to start from the bottom of these criteria and assign each criteria a city. I've already played through the first quiz just to check it out. So I'm going to quickly show you how it works. So as you can see, we've got 8 criteria here. Is an A city, which is basically just the leftover criteria. None of these apply. But as I said, you're supposed to start from the bottom. The birthplace of Socrates is obviously Athens because it's in Greece. Is in Europe. You can see all the cities here. Accra, Addis Ababa, Ahmedabad, Ankara, Auckland, Amsterdam, and Atlanta. Of these 7 countries, only Amsterdam is in Europe. Has hosted the Olympics, is in this case true for Atlanta and none of the others. Would score fewer than 16 Scrabble points, is true for Ankara. In this case, I'm not aware whether any of the other cities would score less than 16 points in Scrabble. I'm pretty sure neither of Addis Ababa, Ahmedabad, or Auckland would. But Accra probably might. I'm not sure how well the C scores. Now, my problem with these quizzes, you can see we've got 2 criteria left here that sound very similar. We've got north of 6 degrees north and north of the equator. If I can just show you the 2 cities that are a problem here. We've got Addis Ababa and Ahmedabad. Addis Ababa is here, as you can see. Slightly above the equator, probably more than 6 degrees. And we've got Ahmedabad here. Obviously north of the equator, obviously more than 6 degrees. Now the problem is, the right answer for this quiz is Addis Ababa, which is not really what you would expect, because while I was thinking about what the right answer would be, I knew Ahmedabad obviously is more than 6 degrees north. I wasn't sure about Addis Ababa. I thought it might be, but I went for the safe choice because while it's not definitely 6 degrees north in my mind, it's definitely north of the equator. The problem is, Addis Ababa is the only accepted answer in this scenario. I can show you that right now. As you can see, Ahmedabad is more than 6 degrees north of the equator and is not accepted as a right answer. I could accept this. You just kind of have to reload a couple times to make it work. I could accept this if you could accept this if those 3 criteria could only be fulfilled if you take Addis Ababa here and leave Ahmedabad for later. The problem is those are exchangeable because I'm going to show you. Is the capital city of a state or country is only true for Accra. Capital city of New Zealand is Wellington. And capital city of India is, don't let me say anything wrong, I think it's Mumbai. And then we're left with north of the equator, which Auckland obviously isn't, so we're going to have to choose Ahmedabad. So basically, we've got 2 criteria that are true for 2 different cities. And we've got no way of knowing which is the right choice. I've played one other quiz in this row before, in this series, which was the I cities, and it has similar problems. I was left with 5 cities, and I found a way of solving it. However, that wasn't the accepted way, so it was wrong. So we're going to have to do a bit of trial and error here. And I'm not even getting into me not knowing stuff yet. But also, we're probably not going to make it in the 4-minute timer because I have to commentate and have to think a bit, but we can do it. Well, worst case scenario, we're going to have to reload a couple times. Anyway, let's get into it with the B cities. So our criteria are: is the capital of a country more than 5,000 miles away from Taiwan, hosted the Olympics, not in the Americas, is guessed more than 50% of the time on B cities by picture quiz, Jesus Christ, north of the equator and has a population above 20,000, as well as none of the things down below. Now, is the capital of a country is true for Bangkok, is true for Beijing, is true for Berlin, is true for Bishkek, and is true for Buenos Aires. So we've already got 5 countries that fulfill the criteria. Let's go further up and see what else we can figure out. More than 5,000 miles away from Taiwan. Now, I don't know how many kilometers that is, but it should be roughly 7,000, I think. Anyway, it's definitely not true for Bangkok. It's true for Barcelona. It's probably not true for Madagascar. It's not true for... it's true for Madagascar. It's not true for Beijing. It's true for Berlin. Bishkek is close, but I think it's not true. It's not... Boston's close as well. It's not... it's true for Buenos Aires. Hosted the Olympics. Beijing did. I think Barcelona did. I don't know about any of the others. So we're going to make the assumption we're going to need either of them, so we can't use Beijing here. Not in the Americas is true for most of these, except for Boston and Buenos Aires. Is guessed more than 50% of... I just have no idea. North of the equator is true for Bangkok. It's true for Barcelona. It's true for Beijing. It's true for Berlin. It's true for Bishkek. It's true for Boston. So the only 2 that I can get rid of before are Buenos Aires and Biarritz. Has a population above 20,000 is probably true for all of them except Biarritz. So Biarritz is the last one. Biarritz we're not going to use until the last one. Has a population above 20,000. We're going to use the only other remaining, which I'm not quite sure which it'll be. North of the equator, I can get rid of Buenos Aires and... Well, I can only get rid of Buenos Aires until then. I can't safely get rid of all the others. More than 5,000 miles away from Taiwan. It's definitely true for Buenos Aires. It's definitely true for... Actually, I'm not even sure it's true for any of the others. Like 100%. It probably is. It definitely is, but... it's definitely true for Biarritz. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to use the first 4 minutes. We're going to think about everything that's in here. And we're going to guess our first city right at the end of the 4 minutes. Because it's probably going to be wrong, to be honest. Actually, Berlin might have hosted the Olympics once. Although, I'm not sure about that. I am tempted to go for... Because Buenos Aires is not true for that. Buenos Aires, I don't think have hosted the Olympics, although they might have. They are definitely more than 5,000 miles away from Taiwan. Do I want to go Bangkok? I'm going to go Bangkok. And it was wrong. All right. So we're going to need Bangkok later. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to think about this again with the exclusion of Bangkok. Because what we can do now is we can look at Bangkok again. And we can see, well, it's not the capital. Well, it is the capital, but it's not true in this scenario. More than 5,000 miles away from Taiwan is definitely not true for Bangkok. Hosted the Olympics might be, but I don't think so. I think like those Eastern Asian countries have been more usually representative of the Olympics in recent years, and Bangkok hasn't. Not in the Americas is true. Which of the cities would people recognize? People would recognize Barcelona, I think, depending on the picture. They also might recognize Berlin. They might recognize Boston. Bangkok, I'm unsure. Probably. North of the equator is true for Bangkok. But I think it's out before then. I think we're going to have to use Bangkok for... Bishkek hasn't done that. Bishkek is not true for that. Bishkek is true for that. I'm going to go with Buenos Aires. And it's wrong again. All right. What do we have left? Capital of a country, we've got left Beijing, Berlin. That's it. And Bishkek, of course. Actually, more than 5,000 miles away from Taiwan is probably not true for Bishkek. They've not hosted the Olympics. They are not in the Americas. Not more than 50 people would guess Bishkek on a picture quiz. It is north of the equator and it has a population above 20,000. But I think we can make do better if you use Bishkek immediately. Nope, apparently not. All right. This is not a great start. I swear I'm not stupid. All right, we're left with Beijing and Berlin. What do we definitely need? I mean, Beijing hosted the Olympics. I'm sure of that. So we're going to use Berlin for that. More than 5,000 miles away from Taiwan. We're going to need Beijing for the Olympics. More than 5,000. Oh, well, they're obviously not more than 5,000 miles away from Taiwan. That is true for Barcelona. Biarritz we said we're going to ignore because that's the last one. It is true for Boston, I think. It's definitely true for Buenos Aires. So we're basically left with Barcelona or Buenos Aires. Barcelona have hosted the Olympics, I think. I'm pretty sure. But they're also not in the Americas. They would be guessed the north of the equator. I think Barcelona has more use to us later, so I think we're going to go with Buenos Aires. And it was wrong. Okay. It was Berlin, right? Yeah. Okay, more than 5,000 miles away from Taiwan. So it has to be Barcelona then. This definitely not. This definitely not. This is sure, but I still think we're going to need to use it later. Bishkek definitely is not that far away. Yeah, it was Barcelona. So hosted the Olympics, Beijing have. Yeah, not in the Americas. All right. Now we're getting into the part where I don't have to guess quite as much because I can think about what solutions would be possible. Not in the Americas is true for Bishkek, Biarritz and Bangkok. Is guessed more than 50% of the time would probably be true for Bangkok and Boston. Might be for Buenos Aires, definitely not for these two. North of the equator is true for Bishkek, Boston and Bangkok. Alright, so we've got Bishkek is true for this, and this. Alright. Let me do it a different way. Let me just pretend we're going to choose Bishkek here. It's guessed more than 50% of the time we could use Bangkok. North of the equator we could use Boston, has a population about above 20,000, we could use Buenos Aires, and as a B city we could use Biarritz. That is definitely true. I know that that's true. The problem is, did the person who made the quiz think of a different solution? Which we're going to try out right now. Because, if you think about it, not in the Americas and is a B city are absolutely interchangeable between Biarritz and Bishkek. So I've really not got any way of knowing. I'm going to assume. And the thing is, north of the equator is guessed more than 50% is totally interchangeable between Bangkok and Boston. And has a population above 20,000 is probably true for all of them except Biarritz. So really we're only guessing at this point. And I'm going to guess the right answer is Bishkek, which it wasn't. Alright. Berlin, Barcelona, Beijing. Alright, not in the Americas. These are wrong. This is apparently wrong according to the maker of the quiz. We've got Bangkok and Biarritz left. I'm going to guess we need Bangkok later. So I'm going to go for, okay, apparently it's Bangkok. Sure. Because that's the most logical assumption to make. Barcelona, Spain, Bangkok. Alright. Guessed more than 50%. It's probably Boston. I mean, I'd assume, I wouldn't know how Boston looks like, but I'd assume most people who play these quizzes are from the US and they would recognize Boston. People definitely aren't recognizing Bishkek and Biarritz. I've never heard of Biarritz before. And I don't think they would recognize Buenos Aires that easily. Or if I do I need? No, I don't need north of the equator. Yeah. So north of the equator is only true for Bishkek, has a population above 20,000, it's only true for Buenos Aires, and is a B city, is only true for Bejete. There we go. It gets easier if you get closer to the end. All right. We're now going to do C cities. Let's see if it's as... Is ambiguous the right word? Don't think it is. If it's as unclear as before, which is the right solution. Let's, as usual, get into it, read whatever criteria we've got, and then let's look at the cities we have. Is in Oceania. South of the equator, worth more than 11 points in Scrabble, is a national capital city, has a population above 350,000, not in North America, has fewer than 2 sets of double letters, that's a good one, and is a sea city. Alright, I'm assuming Oceania includes Australia, so this is true for Canberra and no one else. Alright, that's an easy first one. South of the equator is true for Cape Town, and actually I think Venezuela is only true for Cape Town. Alright, worth more than 11 points in Scrabble. Caracas is. Copenhagen is definitely. Chattanooga is. Cadiz actually might be, even though it's so short, but a Z and a C. That might be loads of points. Okay, so we can't do any exclusions here. I think all of them might be worth more than 11 points. Chennai actually might not be. Cadiz again, like, it's close. Is a national capital city. Is true for Caracas, is true for Copenhagen. So we need either of those. Has a population above 350,000. That is such a random number. It's probably true for Chennai, just because it's an Indian country. Might be true for Chicago. Might be true for Caracas. I don't think Cadiz has above 350,000 people. I don't know how big Chattanooga is, but I'm going to assume this might not have it either. Copenhagen probably does. Not in North America. Is true for Caracas, is true for Chennai, is true for Copenhagen and for Cadiz. So that has fewer than 2 sets of double letters. What? Like, that is basically, I'm assuming, if I understand this correctly, I'm assuming 2 sets of double letters means a double T and a double O in Chattanooga. That's the only one that's excluded here. So I'm actually going to assume we're going to use Chattanooga either here right now or as a C city. Worth more than 11 points. What else could I use? Let me just guess again. Chattanooga, Copenhagen, Chicago, Caracas, Cadiz, Chennai. That would be a solution to this puzzle. Now, did the maker think of that solution? No. Well, he might have thought of it, but alright. I have to wait for the page to load fully before I can start playing. There we go. Alright, so first one was Canberra, then it was Cape Town. Okay, a different way. We're using Chattanooga as a C city. Worth more than 11 points to Scrabble, Copenhagen definitely is. So we could use Copenhagen now. We could use Caracas for the national capital city. Population above 350,000, we could use Chicago. We could use Chennai for not in North America. We could use Cadiz for fewer than 2 sets of double letters, and Chattanooga as a C city. And apparently that might be the right way. So national capital city leaves us only if Caracas has a population above 350,000. Now, I don't know about these two. I don't know how big they are. I know Cadiz probably doesn't. I know Chicago probably does. Let me just think of if I can exchange any of these without knowing which they have to be. Actually, this really depends on how many inhabitants Chattanooga has. If it has less than 350,000, it's guaranteed as a sea city. I'm just going to assume it does. Now, not in North America is only true for these two. So I have to still use either of those. I'm just going to assume Chicago is right, and it wasn't. All right. So for more than three, it has to be Chennai, basically. Because I'm pretty sure I need Chattanooga later on. Canberra, Cape Town, Copenhagen, Caracas. All right. Chennai. Yep. Not in North America. It's only true for Cadiz, has fewer than two. Yep. Chicago, Chattanooga. There we go. That was a lot quicker than the B cities. Still a bit confusing. Actually, let me just quickly check. Chattanooga. Okay, that's not the city. Yeah, 170,000 inhabitants. Good. I was right on that one. I'm pretty sure Chicago has more. Yeah, it does. All right, just bad luck apparently.